The wheelchair's rubber tires squeaked against the polished marble floor of Meridian Financial Tower as Marcus Chen navigated toward the elevator bank. At 28, he had learned to ignore the stares that followed him through corporate lobbies, but today felt different. Today, the weight of anticipation pressed against his chest like a physical force. He pressed the call button and waited, adjusting his navy blazer and checking his watch. 2:47 p.m. 13 minutes until the most important meeting of his career, excuse me? The voice behind him was sharp, impatient. Are you lost? Marcus turned his wheelchair to face the speaker, a woman in her early 30s with platinum blonde hair pulled into a severe bun and cold blue eyes that looked him up and down with undisguised disdain. Her red lipstick was applied with military precision, and her designer suit probably costs more than most people's monthly rent. I'm sorry? Marcus kept his voice level, though something in her tone set off warning bells. This is the executive floor access, she said, speaking slowly as if he were a child. The public tours are on the first floor. You'll need to go back down, and I'm not here for a tour. Marcus's fingers tightened on his armrests. I have a meeting. The woman, her name tag read Victoria Sterling, Senior Vice President, let out a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. A meeting? Here? She looked around the lobby as if searching for hidden cameras. Listen, sweetheart, I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but Ms. Sterling. Marcus's voice carried a warning edge now. I suggest you suggest. Victoria's voice rose, drawing the attention of other employees waiting for elevators. You suggest? Do you have any idea who I am? I've been with this company for 8 years. I've closed deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And you, she gestured dismissively at his wheelchair, you think you could just roll in here and tell me what to do? The elevator lobby had gone silent. Marcus could feel the weight of a dozen stares, could hear the soft ping of phone cameras recording. His face burned with humiliation, but he forced himself to remain calm. Miss Sterling, no. Victoria stepped closer, her heels clicking against the marble. You know what? I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to call security right now and have them escort you out before you embarrass yourself further. 'Cause whatever sob story you're planning to spin upstairs, whatever sympathy play you're running in's, not going to work. This is a serious business, not a charity. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Victoria stepped inside, then turned back to Marcus with a smile that could have cut diamond. Maybe try the McDonald's down the street, she said. Always hiring, and I'm sure they have wheelchair-accessible facilities. The doors closed, leaving Marcus alone with the whispers and stares of the remaining employees. His hands shook as he pressed the call button again, rage and humiliation. Warring in his chest? It faced discrimination before, but never so publicly, never so cruelly. The next elevator arrived empty. Marcus rolled inside and pressed the button for the 42nd floor, the executive suite. As the floors ticked by, he closed his eyes and focused on his breathing. On the plan that had brought him here, on the moment of reckoning that awaited Victoria, Sterling had no idea what was coming. The 42nd floor of Meridian Financial Tower buzzed with nervous energy. Word had spread through the company like wildfire. The mysterious new owner was finally making his appearance. For 3 months, ever since the hostile takeover that had shocked the financial world, employees had wondered about the identity of the man who had outmaneuvered Richard Blackstone, the legendary CEO who had built Meridian Financial into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Victoria Sterling sat in the conference room. Her earlier encounter with the wheelchair-bound man already forgotten. She had bigger concerns now, like impressing the new owner and securing her position as senior vice president. The takeover had been swift and ruthless, executed with a precision that had left industry analysts scrambling to understand how someone had managed to acquire a controlling interest in Meridian Financial seemingly overnight.
Dave, word on when?
He's arriving? Asked James Morrison, the chief financial officer, loosening his tie nervously. Soon, replied Margaret Walsh, the company's longtime chief operating officer. All I know is that he's been conducting due diligence remotely for weeks. Today's the first time he's actually visiting the building. Victoria smoothed her skirt and checked her reflection in the conference room's glass wall. She had spent the morning preparing her presentation, highlighting her department's performance and her personal contributions to the company's success. This was her moment to shine, to prove that she was indispensable to the new regime. I still can't believe how quickly it happened, muttered David Park, the head of investment banking. One day we're flying high. The next day, we're under new ownership. Blackstone didn't even see it coming. That's what happens when you get complacent, Victoria said, her voice carrying a sharp edge. The old guard gets replaced by people who actually know how to run a business. I, for one, am excited to work with someone who clearly has vision. The conference room door opened, and Richard Blackstone entered, his face grim. Despite being ousted as CEO, he had been retained as a consultant during the transition, a small mercy that had surprised everyone, including Blackstone himself. He's here, Blackstone announced. The new owner is in the building. He'll be joining us in a few minutes. Victoria felt her pulse quicken. This was her chance to make a first impression that would define her future with the company. "What's he like?" asked Margaret. Blackstone's expression was unreadable. "Let's just say he's not what you'd expect. He's brilliant, ruthless, when necessary, and he doesn't suffer fools gladly. He's also... Blackstone paused, seeming to search for words. He's someone who understands what it means to be underestimated." Before anyone could ask what that meant, the door opened again. Margaret Walsh entered, her face flushed with excitement and something else surprise, perhaps even shock. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "I'd like you to meet Marcus Chen, the new owner of Meridian Financial." The wheelchair rolled into the room with quiet confidence, its occupant wearing the same navy blazer Victoria had seen in the lobby less than an hour ago. But now, instead of the uncertain man she had dismissed and humiliated, she saw something else entirely: intelligence, determination, and a subtle smile that sent ice through her veins. Marcus Chen positioned his wheelchair at the head of the conference table, his dark eyes scanning the room with the calm assessment of a predator sizing up its prey. When his gaze landed on Victoria, she felt her world tilt on its axis. "Good afternoon," Marcus said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "I know this transition has been... unexpected, but I want to assure you all that I'm committed to making Meridian Financial stronger than it's ever been." Victoria's mouth went dry. The man she had mocked, the man she had suggested apply at McDonald's, the man she had dismissed as a charity case was her new boss, her new owner. "I believe in meritocracy," Marcus continued, his eyes never leaving Victoria's face. "I believe that talent and hard work should be rewarded and that those who contribute to our success should be recognized. But I also believe that there's no place in this organization for people who lack basic human decency." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Victoria felt sweat beading on her forehead despite the chill that had settled over her. Marcus said, finally breaking eye contact with Victoria to address the room. "I'd like to meet with each department head individually over the next few days. We have a lot of work to do, and I want to understand exactly what we're working with." His smile was pleasant, professional, but Victoria caught the steel beneath it. She was in trouble, career-ending trouble. The meeting continued for another hour, but Victoria barely heard a word of it. Her mind was racing, trying to calculate the damage, trying to figure out how to salvage her career from the wreckage of her own arrogance. Every time Marcus spoke, his voice calm and measured as he outlined his vision for the company. She felt the noose tightening around her professional neck. When the meeting finally ended, Victoria lingered as the other executives filed out, hoping for a chance to speak with Marcus privately. She needed to apologize, to explain, to somehow make this right. "Ms. Sterling." Marcus's voice stopped her as she reached the door. "Could you stay behind for a moment?" Victoria's heart hammered against her ribs as she turned back, forcing what she hoped was a confident smile. "Of course, Mr. Chen. I was hoping we could chat." Marcus waited until the door closed behind the last executive before speaking. "I imagine you were." Positioned his wheelchair to face her directly, his expression unreadable. "Would you like to explain what happened in the lobby earlier?" Victoria's mind went blank. She had prepared several potential explanations on the elevator ride up, but now, faced with Marcus's steady gaze, all her carefully crafted words deserted her. I I made a mistake, she said finally. I sincerely apologize. I had no idea who you were, and You had no idea who I was, Marcus repeated slowly. Is that your defense? That you didn't know I was the new owner when you suggested I apply at McDonald's? Victoria's face burned. I was having a stressful day, and I'm Ms. Sterling. Marcus's voice cut through her stammering like a blade. Do you know what I do when I'm having a stressful day? I don't take it out on strangers. I don't mock people for their disabilities. I don't assume that someone in a wheelchair couldn't possibly belong in a professional setting. Mr. Chen, please. I've been in this chair for 6 years. Marcus continued, his voice never rising, but somehow carrying more weight than if he had been shouting. 6 years since a drunk driver decided that a red light was merely a suggestion. 6 years of people like you looking at me and seeing only limitations. 6 years of being underestimated, dismissed, and treated as if my disability somehow affected my intelligence or my worth as a human being. Victoria opened her mouth too. Respond. But Marcus held up a hand. But you know what those 6 years taught me? They taught me that the biggest disability isn't physical, it's the inability to see past your own prejudices. They taught me that the greatest weakness isn't in the body, it's in the character. And they taught me that when people underestimate you, when they dismiss you, when they treat you as less than human, that's when you have the greatest opportunity to prove them wrong. Marcus pulled out a tablet and began scrolling through what appeared to be financial reports. I've been studying this company for months, Ms. Sterling. I know everything about Meridian Financial's operations, its strengths, its weaknesses, and its personnel, including you. He turned the tablet toward her, and Victoria saw her own personnel file displayed on the screen. Her performance reviews, her salary, her commission structure, everything. Impressive numbers, Marcus said. We've closed some significant deals. Generated substantial revenue for the company. By all accounts, you're very good at your job. Hope flickered in Victoria's chest. Maybe, unfortunately, Marcus continued, being good at your job doesn't excuse being a terrible human being. The hope died as quickly as it had been born. Mr. Chen, I understand that what I did was wrong. I'm prepared to make amends. I'll donate to disability charities. I'll do sensitivity training. You'll what? Marcus's laugh was soft, but carried no humor. You'll perform public penance to save your career. You'll suddenly develop compassion because it serves your interests. Victoria felt tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. Please, I made a mistake. One mistake. My entire career, everything I've worked for, one mistake. Marcus's voice finally showed emotion-cold, controlled anger. Miss Sterling, this wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. You chose to be cruel to a stranger. You chose to mock someone's disability. You chose to do it publicly, in front of your colleagues, while being recorded on multiple phones. Victoria's blood turned to ice. Recorded? Yes, the videos are quite clear. Your performance has already been viewed several thousand times on social media. Hashtag Meridian Financial VP is trending on Twitter. The story has been picked up by 3 major news outlets. Our PR department has been fielding calls all afternoon. Victoria felt the world spinning around her. Her career, her reputation, her future, all of it crumbling like a house of cards. The irony, Marcus said, his voice returning to its earlier calm tone, is that you were right about one thing. This is a serious business. And in a serious business, there are serious consequences for serious lapses in judgment. Victoria slumped into one of the conference room chairs, her designer suit suddenly feeling like a straitjacket. The weight of her actions was crushing down on her, and for the first time in her adult life, she felt truly helpless. What happens now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus studied her for a long moment, his dark eyes searching her face. That depends on you, I don't understand. You have 2 choices, Miss Sterling. The first is that you can leave this company quietly. We'll provide you with a generous severance package, a neutral reference, and a confidentiality agreement. Be free to pursue other opportunities, though I imagine the viral videos will make that ... too challenging. Victoria's lawyer instincts kicked in, and the second choice. The second choice is that you stay. Victoria blinked, certain she had misheard.
Hey,
You stay, but not as senior vice president. You'll be demoted to junior associate. Your salary will be reduced by 70%. You'll report to the newest member of our team, someone who started in the mailroom last month and has already shown more character in 4 weeks than you've shown in 8 years. The offer hung in the air like a challenge. Victoria's mind raced through the implications. Junior associate meant starting over, meant being at the bottom of the corporate ladder she had spent years climbing. It meant humiliation, financial hardship, and the constant reminder of her fall from grace. Why? She asked. Why would you offer me that? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his fingers steepled in front of him. Because I believe in second chances, Miss Sterling, not because people deserve them, but because sometimes people can change. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives become the catalysts for becoming better than we ever thought possible. He leaned forward slightly, his voice becoming more personal. When I first woke up in that hospital bed 6 years ago, when the doctors told me I'd never walk again, I thought my life was over. I thought I was broken, useless, less than I had been. It took me years to realize that being broken doesn't mean being worthless. It means being human. Victoria found herself leaning forward, despite herself captivated by his words. The accident didn't just take my legs, Ms. Sterling. It took my job, my fiancé, most of my friends. People who claimed to care about me suddenly found reasons to be busy, to avoid the awkwardness of my new reality. But it also gave me something I'd never had before: perspective, empathy, the understanding that everyone is fighting battles we can't see. Marcus's expression softened slightly. I built my fortune by betting on companies that others had written off. Businesses that were broken, dismissed, underestimated. I saw potential where others saw only problems. I'm offering you the same opportunity I gave those companies, the chance to prove that your worst moment doesn't have to define you. Victoria felt tears sliding down her cheeks, and she didn't try to stop them. I don't know if I can do it. Start over, I mean. I have a mortgage, car payments, a lifestyle that will have to change, Marcus finished. Yes. Growth requires sacrifice, Miss Sterling. The question is whether you're willing to make that. Sacrifice for the chance to become someone better than you are today. The conference room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. Victoria stared at her hands, at the designer rings that suddenly felt like chains, at the manicured nails that had never known real work. What would I be doing? She asked finally. As a junior associate, you'd be working in our community outreach division. We're launching a new initiative to provide financial literacy training to underserved communities. You'd be helping people who've been dismissed by the banking industry. People who've been told they don't belong in the world of finance. People like me. The symmetry wasn't lost on Victoria. She had spent her career in the rarefied air of high finance, dealing with wealthy clients and complex investment strategies. Now she was being offered the chance to work with people who had been excluded from that world, people who had been treated the way she had treated Marcus. I need time to think, she said. Marcus nodded. Of course. But I need an answer by tomorrow morning. The board meeting is at 9, and I'll need to announce your decision. Victoria stood on shaky legs, her mind reeling. At the door, she paused and turned back. Mr. Chen, how did you do it? How did you acquire the company so quickly? Marcus smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. The same way I do everything else, Miss Sterling, by being underestimated. Richard Blackstone never saw me as a threat. He saw a disabled man in a wheelchair, not a rival. He ignored my acquisition of minority stakes in his supplier companies. He dismissed my growing influence with his board members. He didn't take me seriously until it was too late. Did you get the capital? I sold my technology company to Google for $2.7 billion 3 years ago. I've been planning this acquisition ever since. You see, Miss Sterling, sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting ahead. Victoria stared at him, truly seeing him for the first time. The man in the wheelchair, not the victim of her cruelty, but the brilliant, determined individual who had just offered her a lifeline she didn't deserve. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, Marcus replied. Thank me when you've proven that you've learned something from this experience. Thank me when you've helped someone else who's been dismissed or underestimated. Thank me when you've become someone your future self can be proud of. Victoria Sterling sat in her empty apartment at 3 a.m., staring at the city lights through her floor-to-ceiling windows. The luxury penthouse that had once been her sanctuary now felt like a prison, its expensive furnishings and designer decor mocking her fall from grace. She had spent the past 6 hours researching Marcus Chen, and what she had found had left her feeling smaller and more ashamed than ever. The man she had dismissed as a charity case was a technological genius who had developed revolutionary software for predictive financial modeling. His company, Chen Analytics, had been acquired by Google for nearly $3 billion, making him one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the world, but more than his wealth. It was his story that had shaken her to her core. The articles she found painted a picture of a man who had overcome not just his disability, but the casual cruelty of a world that saw his wheelchair before they saw his potential. He had been rejected by dozens of venture capitalists, not because his ideas lacked merit, but because they couldn't see past his physical limitations. Victoria's phone buzzed with another notification. The video of her confrontation with Marcus had now been viewed over 1 million times. The comments were brutal, calling her everything from a corporate monster to a disability-shaming sociopath. Her Instagram and LinkedIn accounts had been flooded with messages from people sharing their own stories of discrimination and ableism, but it was the final video that had broken her completely. Someone had recorded Marcus's arrival at the building, catching the moment when he had pressed the elevator button and waited patiently, his expression calm and dignified despite what had just happened. The contrast between his grace under pressure and her public cruelty was stark and devastating. At 7 a.m., Victoria stood in her walk-in closet, looking at the rows of designer suits and expensive shoes that had once defined her identity. She selected a simple black dress, the most modest outfit she owned, and left the rest behind. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like a journey to the gallows. Victoria's hand shook as she knocked on Marcus's office door. "Come in." Marcus sat behind his desk, reviewing documents on his tablet. He looked up when she entered, his expression neutral but not unkind. "Miss Sterling, I wasn't sure you'd come." "I almost didn't," Victoria admitted. "I've been up all night thinking about your offer," and Victoria took a deep breath. "I accept the junior associate position. I want to try to be better." Marcus studied her for a long moment. "It won't be easy. You'll be starting at the bottom, working with people who've seen the videos, who know exactly who you are and what you did. You'll face judgment, skepticism, and probably outright hostility. I know. You'll be working with communities that have every reason to distrust someone who looks like you, talks like you, and comes from your background. You'll have to earn their respect, and that could take years. I understand. And you'll be reporting to someone who's younger than you, less experienced than you, and who will have every right to question your motives and your sincerity." Victoria nodded, her throat tight. "Who is it? Who will I be reporting to?" Marcus reached for his phone and pressed a button. "Could you come in here for a moment?" The door opened, and a young black woman entered, wearing a simple blue dress and carrying a stack of files. She was perhaps 25, with natural hair pulled back in a neat bun and intelligent eyes that assessed Victoria with careful reserve. "Miss Sterling," Marcus said, "I'd like you to meet Dr. Keisha Washington. She just completed her Ph.D. in economics from Stanford, and she's been working in our mailroom for the past month while waiting for her security clearance to come through for a position in our research division." Victoria felt her cheeks burn. The woman she would be reporting to was clearly brilliant, or overqualified, and had probably been treated with the same kind of dismissive prejudice that Victoria had shown Marcus. "Dr. Washington," Marcus continued, "Ms. Sterling has accepted a position as junior associate in the Community Outreach Division. She'll be working under your supervision." Keisha looked between Marcus and Victoria, her expression unreadable. "I saw the videos. I know," Victoria said quietly. "I'm sorry. For what I did, for what I said, for the person I showed myself to be. I know you have no reason to trust me or give me a chance, but I'm hoping to prove that I can change." Keisha was quiet for a long moment. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why take this position? Why not just disappear and start over somewhere else?" Victoria had asked herself the same question 100 times during the long night. Because running away won't make me a better person. because I need to understand the damage I've caused, not just to Mr. Chen, but to everyone who's been dismissed or underestimated because of how they look or what challenges they face. Because I need to learn what it means to actually serve people. Instead of just serving myself, and if it's too hard, if you can't handle the pay cut, the loss of status, the judgment from your peers, then I'll fail, Victoria said simply. But I'd rather fail trying to be better than succeed at being the person I was yesterday. Keisha exchanged a look with Marcus, some unspoken communication passing between them. Then she turned back to Victoria. Okay, she said, we'll try it. But I want you to understand something. This isn't about redemption or forgiveness. This is about doing the work. Real work that matters with real people who need real help. If you're looking for absolution, you're in the wrong place. I understand. Good. Then we start Monday. 7 a.m. Dress code is business casual, and leave the designer labels at home. We'll be working in community centers, not corporate boardrooms. Victoria nodded, feeling a mixture of terror and something else, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, maybe. Or just the possibility of hope. Dr. Washington, Marcus said, could you give us a moment? Keisha nodded and left, closing the door behind her. Marcus wheeled around his desk to face Victoria directly. This is your chance, he said. Not to go back to who you were, but to become who you're meant to be. Don't waste it. I won't, Victoria promised, and for the first time in her life, she meant it completely. 1 year later, Victoria Sterling stood in the community center in East Oakland. Watching as 12-year-old Maria Rodriguez explained compound interest to her grandmother using a calculator and a notebook full of careful calculations. The woman who had once closed million-dollar deals for wealthy clients now found her greatest satisfaction in helping families understand basic banking concepts and build their first savings accounts. Ms. Victoria, Maria called out, her face bright with excitement. Abuela wants to know if you can help her open a business account next week. Victoria smiled, remembering when such a request would have been beneath her notice. Now, she couldn't imagine anything more important. Of course, sweetheart. Tell your grandmother we'll go to the bank together on Tuesday. The past year had been the hardest of Victoria's life. She had lost her penthouse, her luxury car, and most of her fair-weather friends. She now lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment and took public transportation to work. Her former colleagues either ignored her or treated her with barely concealed contempt. But she had gained something more valuable than she had lost. She had gained purpose. Ms. Sterling. Dr. Keisha Washington approached, carrying a stack of enrollment forms. The Martinez family wants to sign up for the Small Business Development Program. They're interested in opening a food truck. Victoria. And Keisha had developed an unlikely partnership over the past year. What had started as professional supervision had evolved into mutual respect and eventually genuine friendship. Keisha had pushed Victoria, challenged her assumptions, and held her accountable when she fell back into old patterns of thinking. That's wonderful news, Victoria said, taking the forms. I'll review their application tonight and set up a meeting for next week. You know, Keisha said, when Marcus first told me about this arrangement, I thought it was a mistake. Thought you were just another entitled person looking for easy absolution. What changed your mind the third week you were here, remember? Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman who was afraid to use the ATM because she thought it would steal her money. Victoria nodded. Mrs. Chen had been one of her first clients, a widowed immigrant who had been keeping her life savings in cash under her mattress. You spent 6 hours with her that day, Keisha continued. Not because you had to, but because she needed that time to feel safe and understood. You could have processed her account in 30 minutes, but you sat with her, listened to her stories, and helped her understand that the bank was there to help her, not take advantage of her. She reminded me of my grandmother, Victoria said quietly. I realized I'd spent so many years looking at clients as numbers on a spreadsheet that I'd forgotten they were people with stories and fears and dreams. That's when I knew you were going to make it. Victoria looked around the community center, at the families working together on financial planning worksheets, at the teenagers learning about credit scores and college loans, at the elderly couples, discovering that they had more options than they'd ever imagined. I never thought I'd say this, she said, but losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me. Even with all the online harassment, the death threats, the job rejections, Victoria had faced all of that and more. The viral videos had followed her everywhere, making her a symbol of corporate callousness and privilege. But she had also received messages from people who had been inspired by her journey, who had seen hope in her transformation. Especially because of all that, Victoria said, I needed to understand what it felt like to be dismissed, to be judged, to be seen as less than human because of one moment, one mistake, one perception. I needed to know what I had been putting others through my entire career. The community. Center door opened, and Marcus Chen entered, followed by a news crew. Victoria's stomach-clenched media attention still made her nervous. Even though today's coverage was supposed to be positive, Miss Sterling, the reporter said, approaching with a microphone, how does it feel to be honored as Oakland's community Volunteer of the Year? Victoria glanced at Marcus, who gave her an encouraging nod. It feels humbling, she said. A year ago, I was a very different person. I was someone who measured success by how much money I made and how many people I could look down on. Today, I measure success by how many people I can help look up. What would you say to people who question your motives, who think this transformation is just a publicity stunt? Victoria had been asked this question dozens of times. I'd say they're right to be skeptical. I'd say that my actions matter more than my words, and that real change takes time to prove itself. I'd say that I'm not looking for forgiveness or congratulations, I'm looking for the chance to be useful. After the interview, Marcus approached her. How are you feeling? Nervous, Victoria admitted. Grateful, different how? Victoria thought about the question. I used to think power meant making others feel small. Now I understand that real power comes from helping others feel strong. I used to think success meant climbing over people. Now I know it means lifting people up. Marcus nodded. In your future? Are you planning to stay in community outreach? Actually, Victoria said, I've been thinking about going back to school, getting my master's in social work. Doctor. Washington thinks I might be good at policy work, helping to change systems instead of just helping individuals navigate them. That's a significant commitment. So was deciding to become a better person, Victoria replied. But some commitments are worth making. Marcus smiled, not the polite, professional smile he had worn during that first confrontation, but a genuine expression of warmth and respect. He said, I never expected this to work. I thought you'd last maybe a month before the pride got to you. What changed your mind? The same thing that changed Dr. Washington's mind? You did the work? Not just the job, but the real work of becoming someone better. That's rarer than you might think. Victoria looked around the community center one more time, the faces of the families she had come to know and care about, at the program she had helped build, at the small but meaningful changes she had been part of creating. Mr. Chen, she said, I need to ask you something. Why did you really give me this chance? The real reason? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, because someone gave me a chance once. After my accident, when I was angry and bitter and convinced that the world had given up on me, someone saw potential in my brokenness. They helped me understand that being broken doesn't mean being worthless, it means being human. And sometimes the most broken people become the most powerful forces for good. Who was it? Who helped you? A janitor at the rehabilitation hospital. His name was Robert, and he had been cleaning floors for 30 years. He couldn't read very well, had never owned a computer, and most people treated him as if he were invisible. But he was the wisest person I'd ever met. He taught me that dignity isn't about what you do, it's about how you treat people while you're doing it. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. Where is he now? He died 2 years ago. Cancer. But before he passed, I was able to tell him that he had changed my life, that his kindness to a bitter, angry man in a wheelchair had rippled out into the world in ways he could never have imagined. Is that what you're hoping for? That I'll ripple out into the world? Marcus nodded. Every person you help, every family you empower, every act of kindness you show, it all ripples outward. The woman who mocked a disabled stranger in a corporate lobby is gone. The question is, who will you choose to be instead? Victoria looked at her hands, no longer manicured, no longer adorned with expensive jewelry, but hands that had learned to do real work, to help real people, to build something meaningful. I choose to be useful. she said. "I choose to be kind. I choose to be someone who lifts people up instead of putting them down. I choose to be human." Marcus extended his hand and Victoria shook it not as former adversaries, not as owner, an employee, but as to people who had found their way from brokenness to hope. "Welcome to the beginning of your real life," Victoria Sterling said, and for the first time in her 33 years, Victoria truly felt like she was home.
What?
Did you think of this thrilling journey? Share your favorite moment in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest tales. What kind of story would you like to hear next? Let me know in the comments, and remember sometimes, our worst moments become the foundation for our greatest transformations.